Data plays an integral part in promoting learning, especially towards development of any nation. With the ever-evolving landscape in education, understanding the role of data and harnessing its power becomes crucial. For educators, it allows educators to personalize learning experiences for students, track students' progress, evaluate teaching methods, thereby enabling a more data-driven approach to teaching and learning. Just recently, the Ministry of Education inaugurated an implementation committee for the Nigerian Education Data Initiative, an initiative that is meant to create the impact it is expected to have on the education sector. Before now, the education system has been functioning with the absence of a unified and comprehensive data framework. But with the incoming change, it is expected to reposition the Nigerian education sector as a beacon of excellence, to establish a centralized, harmonized data bank with a unified platform that will consolidate all critical education data in Nigeria. At its core, this data bank will not merely house information but serve as the foundation for evidence-based decision-making and policy development, enabling the sector to thrive, to meet the aspirations of every Nigerian in the pursuit for quality education. Indeed, with accurate, reliable and accessible data, gaps will be identified and targeted interventions will be made where they are most needed. But how will this initiative be effectively implemented without breach of data bank? On Weekend File tonight, we'll beam our spotlight on federal government's data initiative and the expected impact on the education sector. And our guest is Mr. Haniel Jafaru. He's an ICT and cybersecurity expert. We'll bring you reports, of course, as filed in by our correspondents. Thank you for joining us. This is Weekend File. I'm Ruth Aguela. First, let's bring you the news. The Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority has revoked the air operation certificates of East Wind Aviation Logistics Services Limited and Omni Blue Aviation. The authority in a statement says both Omni Blue Aviation and East Wind Aviation involved in alteration of applications, licenses, certificates, logbooks, reports, and records. The authority states that its regulations provide the sanctions for such fraud, including revocation of the certificate. Consequently, their respective air operator certificates are hereby revoked. In other news, 142 local government areas in Nigeria have been declared open defecation free, with implementation still ongoing across communities in the country. Speaking at the 31st regular meeting of the National Council on Water and Sanitation, Minister of Water Resources and Sanitation, Professor Joseph Utsev, says strategic actions are being taken in line with a presidential directive on food security and hygiene. Clement Barikiu reports.
The globe, including Nigeria, climate change is causing water scarcity, and this has significantly affected the well-being of humans, agricultural productivity, and food availability. Leveraging programs and partnerships aimed at revolutionizing Nigeria's irrigated agricultural landscape, boosting food security, alleviating poverty, creating jobs and propelling economic growth as encapsulated in the Sustainable Development Goals are why these critical stakeholders are here.
The total available irrigable land developed so far by the RBDA stands at 153,090 hectares, while continuous efforts are being made towards strengthening the river basins to deliver more on the set targets.
Drawing stakeholders' attention to two abandoned dams in Akwa Ibom State, Governor Umoino looks forward to collaborations with the federal government and development partners to reactivate the dams.
Our commitment to food security and food sufficiency is unwavering, and we recognize the critical role water resources play in achieving this goal.
The 10th House of Representatives, and indeed the National Assembly, is ready to play its role in ensuring that all decisions taken at this council are achieved and realized.
The 31st session of the National Council on Water Resources and Sanitation hopes to come up with policies that will enable the water and sanitation sector achieve the relevant components of the renewed hope agenda of the present administration and the Sustainable Development Goals. Clement Barikui, NTA News.
With an estimate of over 20 million Nigerians in diaspora, the Nigerian Diaspora Commission has provided a strategic enlightenment process that will promote investment in the entire northeastern part of the country. Now, this is with a view to attract investors from diaspora to invest in bringing back economic activities in the region. Mariamu Bala reports.
It is endowed with natural resources which could be tapped. Stakeholders in this gathering are strategizing on how they could tap resources in the region.
Agriculture, natural resources and tourism are potentials that abound in the region but without getting their full benefits. Ensuring a bureaucratic process to eradicate fear by investors in diaspora is what has brought together stakeholders to brainstorm on the $90 billion remittance from diaspora and how it can be used for Nigeria's socio-economic growth.
Clear evidences have therefore continued to point that if the Northeast does not prioritize revenue generation through appropriate exploitation of our potentials, the future of the economy of the region is not likely to be bright. This is most especially as we approach a new tax regime in the Nigerian tax system.
This workshop is designed to provide a platform for diaspora investors to learn about the investment opportunities available in the Northeast region and to connect with local stakeholders and policymakers.
The Diaspora Commission delegate from 6 states of the Northeast and the FCT paid a visit to Governor Bala Mohammed on the need to prioritize revenue generation through exploitation of potentials. In Bauchi, Mariamu Bala, NTA News.
Cross-fertilization of ideas among states in Nigeria is fostering uniformity in growth and development of the country. To strengthen this, Gombe and Sokoto states are looking at areas of mutual cooperation to enhance good governance. Emmanuel Akila will tell us more.
The two teams from Sokoto State, received by the Secretary to Gombe State Government, are in Gombe on study tour and consultations on legislative and environmental matters.
Gombe has so many things, especially the laws governing the execution and the implementation of the autonomies of local government, especially. And that is why we are here.
Gombe have been first in ease of doing business. In so many things, first since 2021, it has been consistent. So for people to want to understand and understudy us, to be able to learn, it's a good development.
The visit by the delegation from Sokoto State to Gombe underscores the importance of uniformity in policies and programs of government at the sub-national levels for the growth and development of the country.
The tour entails learning a lot of in terms of programs, in terms of projects, in terms of policies. So we have learned a lot for the state we are here.
Any bilateral discussion, the end product is a mutual benefit from both these states. We are going to benefit from them and they are going to benefit from us too.
They interact with Gombe State government officials and lawmakers during the two-day visit in Gombe. Emmanuel Akila, NTA News.
A look at security. Kano State Police Command has apprehended 4 suspected terrorists, including a Chadian national, and recovered improvised explosive. Samira Hamisu reports.
Natives of the State Police Command who have been on the trail of the suspects following intelligence report arrested them while planning to establish a terror camp and launch attacks in Kano. Addressing newsmen, the State Commissioner of Police, Salman Dugo Garba, said the planned terrorist camp is being coordinated by a Chadian national, Ahmed Adam, who was arrested in possession of improvised explosive devices. He said the principal suspect is now at large as police spread its dragnets. The police commissioner said the suspects are in police custody while the investigation continues.
The wanted Chadian suspected terrorists escaped out of Nigeria, and we have successfully apprehended 3 of the suspect associates, including his wife. Another Chadian named Jobe Mohammed, 42 years old, and a Nigerian.
He reiterates the readiness of the command to discharge its constitutional responsibility and appeal to the public to remain vigilant and report any suspicious activities to the nearest police station. From Kano, Samira Hamisu Shira, NTA News.
A look at health. The Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Ali Pati, says President Bola Tinubu's administration is committed to sustaining the eradication of polio and strengthening routine immunization across Nigeria. Speaking at the 42nd Expert Review Committee on polio briefing in Abuja, the minister highlighted ongoing challenges such as vaccine procurement delays, community hesitancy, and cross-border virus transmission, emphasizing the need for greater accountability by political leaders at all levels to take responsibility for addressing gaps in the immunization program.
We would map out all these recommendations and see what does he do, what do I do. But that's just one part. On the political leadership, from the president, the vice president, the economic council, up to the governors, and we'll have the next NEC meeting and we'll go and continue to push. I'm responsible for that. And I take that responsibility and I continue to push and I will not pass the buck.
We can get the governors of some, particularly states where we have intense transmission, to provide executive supervision. So when the governors get involved, then we are likely to achieve better results.
At the state level, some sort of a immunization coverage improvement planning kind of thing would really helpful in addition to what is being done to strengthen the system as a whole, which is all equally important.
Tackling the scourge of cancer is gaining more attention from relevant actors in the health sector and survivors' experiences. As Nigeria prepares to celebrate the 2025 World Cancer Day, assessing the country's response mechanisms for prevention and management of the disease was the aim of an awareness work to choke cancer out of the country. Elizabeth Omori will tell us more.
A large group of diseases that can start almost in any organ or tissues of the body when abnormal cells grow uncontrollably. Survey shows that an estimated 30 million new cancer cases are predicted for 2050, and lung, prostate, breast, and colorectal cancers are said to be the most aggressive. These facts necessitated this work to heighten advocacy on early diagnosis, financial and psychological support. Favor is a breast cancer survivor.
I decided to know what the lump was. That was when I went for a screening. So when I had the biopsy result came out and I was told I had breast cancer.
Increasing adoption of unhealthy eating habits and high cost of oncology treatment, medical experts insist promote the prevalence.
We should begin to look at precision medicine. Many people are coming to the hospital presenting it at stage 4, at stage 3, for very obvious reasons. Even though we know that precision medicine is very expensive, that is the reason some doctors feel they should not prescribe. But please, I think the patients should know there should be awareness on precision medicine.
National Health Insurance Scheme, but it is not covering everything. And we have another huge challenge. Even when you're registered, you may go to the hospitals concerned and you will not see the medicines there.
I want to also appeal to the college that they're actually training the specialists to actually make it possible that more specialists will be trained.
They recommend medical checks as well as healthy lifestyle. Elizabeth Omori, NTA News.
As a woman, have you done the screening? I think you should. Well, we'll take a break now. When we come back, thank you for staying with us. The conversation will be on the federal government data initiative and the expected impact on the education sector. But before we bring in our guest, well, we'll let you know that in the next 3 months, Nigeria's education sector is expected to have a unified and consistent data bank designed to guide ongoing reforms in the system. Now, this follows the inauguration of a committee by the Federal Ministry of Education to oversee the Nigeria Education Data Initiative. Zenret Dingmun reports on what is expected of the committee.
Inadequate, reliable and comprehensive data has long hindered progress in Nigeria's education sector, making it difficult to make informed decisions, allocate resources efficiently, and accurately measure performance. To address this, the federal government has initiated a plan to consolidate fragmented data from various agencies and institutions into a central, credible, and reliable platform. This platform will track students' educational journeys from their foundational years to their integration into the labor force, providing a clear picture of progress at every stage.
The initiative promises far-reaching benefits, from enhancing policy planning and fostering transparency to simplifying administrative processes and supporting groundbreaking research and innovation.
At its core, this data bank will not merely house information, but serve as the foundation for evidence-based decision-making and policy development, enabling us to deliver quality education that meets the aspirations of every Nigerian child.
Find a way of knowing what are the industries that are emerging within our economy. What are the skill sets these industries are looking for?
Other areas to be focused on are school locations and infrastructure information, parents and guardians data, teachers' qualifications as well as training, examinations and assessment records, tertiary education data, and school grading, which will drive competition and better performance.
We have 458,000 students whom we've never met, who have applied for loans and received loans from us. The power of data cannot be contested when it is gathered and used properly.
We generate data from not less than 1.5 million candidates. Individual progress of Nigerians and national development through the examinations we conduct, and an insight into performance of candidates yearly.
It will help us to profile from the beginning their socioeconomic status, their parental support, their educational support, and all through, so that we monitor students and what they become and how they conclude their education.
The Ministry of Education is optimistic that this development will make the education system more inclusive, effective, and responsive to the nation's needs. In Abuja, Zenret Dingmun, NTA News.
Well, you agree with me that knowing the exact number of students in and, of course, in tertiary, secondary and primary institutions and teachers at various levels of Nigeria's educational system and other statistics has been a Herculean task. Now, these challenges and many others are what the Special Committee on the Nigerian Education Data Initiative hopes to address through a centralized and harmonized educational data bank. Let's hear from Joel Popola.
Various education policy decisions in the country, according to experts, were taken without credible statistics. Thus, many of the policies did not yield the desired results because they were not informed by reliable data. The Nigerian Education Data Initiative will help provide accurate data on the level of enrollment, numbers of out-of-school children, and the state of facilities that will serve as a guide in budgetary allocation for critical areas of needs in each region. Experts describe the initiative as apt as it will help Nigeria keep pace with the rest of the world.
Most of this ranking that is being carried out globally are evident of data provided by those educational institution in ensuring that all the critical stakeholders are carried along so that we all have belief in the reliability and credibility of the data that will be developed at the end of the day.
The committee, which is expected to complete the data bank by third quarter, will be responsible for designing and executing a roadmap for the successful realization of NEDI and developing a framework for the Nigerian Education Data Bank. In Lagos, Joel Bokbola, NTA News.
All right, let's bring in our guests. We have Mr. Haniel Jafaru, an IT and cybersecurity expert. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Jafaru.
Thank you for having me.
I don't know what your thoughts will be concerning this laudable initiative, talking about the Nigeria Data Initiative, the committee that was inaugurated for the implementation. Now, we live in a digital era where data is very vital, not just for education, but for every aspect, but narrowing it down to education. What kind of, impact will this have on the system?
Well, it's going to have enormous impact. Looking at it from the perspective that it is more like an integration of all the data from different sectors of education, looking at it from the primary schools down to the secondary schools and the higher institutions. It integrates all their data and make it easier for students to be tracked at every point in time. So it's a laudable initiative, and it's an initiative I believe it would be of enormous benefit to the citizens and also to the government. It's like it's an all-round progressive initiative, and it's something I applaud the ministry for taking the initiative of setting up the committee that would ensure that this is implemented.
Okay, if we want to look at how this will be achieved, it will of course require the buy-in of every key player in the sector. This is why I'm saying this, because you need to collate this data before you can harmonize it and have a unified data bank. So as an IT and cybersecurity expert, what can the ministry leverage on to ensure that every aspect, because this data bank will be collated or unified in different categories. So how can they leverage to achieve a seamless process?
Okay, so the good thing about the committee that was instituted is that it's a collation of all the major agencies that deals with some of these data, looking at JAM, for example, NECO, NUC, and the like. So the head of these agencies or representative from these agencies were part of the committee. That would make it easier for them to be able to take feedbacks to their agencies and make sure that their agencies align with the discussions of the committee. And during the meeting, the committee meeting, they will be able to present their own standpoint, looking at it from the committees, from their agency's perspective, and how this data can be harmonized. My major concern actually is, even though this committee tends to be comprehensive, I am just concerned on how they are going to capture data from the informal sector of the informal education sectors, like the Almajiri schools and all those vocational institutions that are not directly under a particular association or a particular agency, or are not being managed by the government. So they will need to think out of the box on how best to be able to capture those in the informal sector, because it's while this initiative is an applaudable initiative, is because of the ability to track a student from primary down to when they even drop out, if that possibility exists. So if someone gets to school now, gets done with his primary school, and the person probably drops out and is unable to further his education in the secondary school, the data bank should be able to capture that possibility. But how about a situation where the person now furthers in an informal sector? So that's the reason why the committee will need to think and see how best to include the informal sector in their data. And once the necessary roadmap and design and schematics have been put in place, implementing it shouldn't be an issue, because at that point it would be software developers and IT consultants that would now do the implementations.
Okay, you know, it's glad you mentioned the non-formal sector, because part of the categories actually that will be looked into to collect data will be parents and guardians. That's also part of it. Even schools, the state of schools, and also funding priorities. Now, these are aspects that they're not necessarily, like you said, under an agency that has already collated its data. So would that pose a challenge?
No, I don't think it will, because the schools has a relationship with the parents. So because the schools have a relationship with the parents, the schools can easily capture that data, while they would now transmit that data to the data bank. So it won't be an issue. My major concern is those schools that we don't even know exist. Those schools in the rural area, those schools that are not in the formal sector, as generally we generally know that there is the primary school, there is the secondary school, and those are the formal sector, the higher institution. How about the Almajiri schools that are not in the formal sector? They don't have a place in the Nigerian education system as a formal means of education. So how would they want to capture it? Because someone can just wake up today and set up a school for that purpose, and it's not registered, it's not recognized by the government. Even if it is registered, it's only registered because it needs to carry out business, but it does not have that formality and the grip of the government to regulate it. So I think the government needs to think of how best they can approach that, especially when it has to do with those kind of informal sector academics.
You know, quite fascinating also, another aspect is that while trying to build a robust data bank, it is expected to create a 360-degree view of the education system in Nigeria. If you want to paint a picture looking at the challenges in a nation like Nigeria that is still grappling, you know, to build all networks to expand broadband, you know, broadband penetration, how do you think this will be seamless?
Okay, so it goes beyond just okay, now let me even start from the fact that one of the concerns about the fact that we are bringing technology into this process is that this data is going to be resident in one area, and that makes it a choice location for attackers. So it's quite important that we take note of that. So hackers can begin to, that data bank can become a target for attackers, because it's going to hold the data of practically over 60 to 80% of Nigeria. In fact, I can use the word 100% of Nigeria. I can be specific to be 100% of Nigeria, because we are expecting that Nigerians will pass, many Nigerians will pass through the education system. And as long as you pass through the education system, your data would be captured. And once your data is captured, it's going to be put in a digital format, and it's going to be saved in someone's server, probably in the cloud. So there's going to be need for the committee to look at how to secure the data and ensure it doesn't become a consign for those that will be dropping their data, knowing fully well that there are regulations that binds data protection, that the agency, the Nigerian Data Protection Commission,
yes,
they do that. But beyond that, there is always the challenge of any agency or any institution resisting change. So that's another challenge I think that the committee will have to encounter. Agencies may resist this change because at this point in time it will require them having to go the extra mile. It may require them having to have additional hands. It may require them having to, especially private sectors, private schools that would now need to get a data operator that would help them manage the data and also ensure that that data is transmitted into the data bank. So it's going to be additional cost for them, and they may want to transfer the cost to the parents. But then beyond the security and and the privacy concern and change resistance concern, it's quite important that everyone bear in mind that it's a laudable initiative, and it's just something that we all have to put our hands together and ensure that it sees the light of day.
Indeed, we're waiting to see what happens, but let's keep that, as we take a break. We'll be back, Mr. Jafaru. Please stay tuned.
Okay.
Thank you for staying with us. The Harmonized Database Initiative in Education by the federal government, if keyed into by the Edo State government, will aid both the state and the local government to have data that represents the current status of the students, pupils, and number of schools for proper planning. Eugenia in the BC reports.
Production of the Harmonized Database Initiative by the federal government on education using NIN as a unique identifier. Respondents say it will help the education sector in the state to know the demography of the pupils and students, including the out-of-school children, the workforce, the quality of schools operating at both levels.
It is laudable that this has been brought. It's innovative, and this initiative is something I feel that all stakeholders should actually cooperate with the government about, so that we can have proper data, and then there can be proper planning.
I think what we need to do is to clean up data first, clean up the data, understand what and where we are. Who are we talking about? Where are they? What is the current challenge? Some of them are not in school. Why are they not in school?
It will help us to be able to know the exact number of children that are in school and the ones that are out of school. So we'll be able to communicate with the community, with stakeholders, with parents, sensitize them of how important it is for every child to be in school.
They also emphasized monitoring the proliferation of unlicensed private schools, which may hinder proper collection of educational demography. In Benin, Eugenia Ndubisi, NTA News.
Now, to transform the country's educational system to strategically accommodate Almajiri and adult education in the country, accurate, reliable, and accessible data is key in policy formation. Atari Maxwell captures it for us from Kaduna.
The initiative will provide comprehensive data on schools' location, infrastructure, and availability of essential facilities, as well as detailed records of students covering demographics, academic performance, and quality of teaching and learning.
Most countries in the world have data for all their citizens, and I think with that we'll be able to know how many children we have in the street, not even in the street, we have children, then how many schools do you need? So when you have the data, it's not just applicable to the education, it applies to all sectors of the economy.
As we are having the National Commission for Almajiri education and out-of-school children, this is a good development that if the federal government will focus on all the support that will make sure that this commission function well, there must be accurate data.
They further called for sustainability of the initiative in line with global best practice. These experts are of the view that the data policy should also be adopted by other sectors for effective planning and accountability in promoting good governance. In Kaduna, Achari Maxwell, NTA News.
All right, Mr. Jafaru, you've seen it from the states. What will be the buy-in of the subnationals, talking about state government? Earlier I asked you a question on the collation process that requires the buy-in of everyone. What role can state governments play to make this become a reality?
Okay, so before a state government would even want to consider, it's even important for them to even understand how it would benefit them. So let's say, for example, the Edo State that was captured. If you have like 10,000, for example, you have like, let's say 100 or 1,000 schools, secondary schools, with over 100,000 students, and you are allocating the same resource to each of those schools. Meanwhile, each of those schools, they don't have the same capacity as long as student is concerned, the same number of students. Yeah. It's resource misappropriation or resource misallocation. So with this data, it helps them to know the exact number of data, the exact number of students in a school, and helps them to see the reasons to even erect or establish more schools within a geographical location, thereby making them to allocate resources as needed, as against them just reallocating based on numbers. This time they are allocating resources based on the data that they have. So the state government needs to take this initiative even more serious than even those that are championing it. And beyond that, we've seen cases of certificate forgery. This would help in address the issue of certificate forgery. Yeah. There are many people who go to school, who go to work, and they submit certificates that certificate of institution that they never attended. You can easily just approach the education data bank and request for the information of that particular student since they are claiming they went to a particular institution, and all the necessary information for that student pops up. So CVs would be validated, verified, credentials will be validated, verified, and these are information that helps the state government to even employ state government to equip the organizations within the state to employ the right skilled personnel for a particular job role.
You know, I like the aspect you went to now, because actually the data bank will consolidate on, data of everyone that's for the Nigerian students now, via your name. So it's going to give you real-time view of your track record of your educational background. So that aspect, of course, will address it. But we can't achieve these again. It requires an advanced level of technology. Now, how can partners come in, talking about the private sector, international communities, to help make this dream become a reality?
Well, I'm always an advocate of localizing technology. So if we're getting any partner, we should try as much as possible to use the local companies and local partners as against international partners, because there is data sovereignty, which is one of the concerns or advocacy of the Nigerian Data Protection Commission, that who owns a data that resides within the country. So if we begin to allow external partners or foreign partners to partner in this initiative, the possibility now lies in the fact that our data can be exported, and that will be a huge concern for us. So now, how can partners come in? I think partners can come in the area of financial support. Yeah. It would require high level of financial support for this initiative to be implemented, because we're not just talking about integrating 1, 2, 3 schools. We're talking about integrating thousands and thousands of schools. There will be need for localized trainings where schools need to now be trained on how to use the system. So we would need partners I think the committee would need partners in the area of training those that are involved. Would also need, I think the committee will also, the committee will also need partners in the area of in the area of developing the infrastructure that is needed to host this thing, where the data will be stored, who would store the data, who would protect the data. All these things are areas that would need partnership. So these are areas I think the committee can begin to advocate for partners, financial partners, technical partners that will help, that will guide them in the area of designing the schematics that will make this thing work. Security partners that will help them to secure, to ensure that the structure for the data bank is secure, because everywhere there is data is like you've gathered the food for malicious actors. That becomes their target, and especially when an initiative is new and they've not really gone far with security, that becomes a huge concern. So that's that.
Indeed, and we don't want to hear of any breach of the data bank.
We hope so.
Of course, because at the end of the day, Nigerians just want to see an accurate, reliable, and accessible data. Thank you so much, Mr. Haniel Jafaru. Thank you for your time on Weekend File.
Thank you for having me, always.
Our pleasure. Let's take another break. We're back in a moment. Thank you for staying with us. And Sports Update is up next. Ayo Deji Makinde is standing by. Ayo, what's happening in the world of sports?
Oh, well, quite a busy weekend in the world of sports, but let's try and focus more on what is happening here in Nigeria, because Remo Stars continued their unbeaten run, sitting comfortably at the top of the Nigeria Premier Football League with 45 points after they defeated Sunshine Stars of Akure at the Township Stadium out there in Ondo State on Saturday. Well, on Sunday, 5 matches will be decided, with Bayelsa United away to Kano Pillars, just as Abia Warriors welcome Akwa United to the Umuahia Township Stadium. Other matches feature Rivers United versus Heartland as Nasarawa United welcome Niger Tornadoes, while Plateau United take on Shooting Stars Sports Club of Ibadan. In the meantime, the Nigeria Football Federation Referee Committee has taken disciplinary action against 2 match officials, Obong Amos Ekpanku and assistant referee Juan Emmanuel Ofe, after both fell short in the officiating of the Nigerian National League Matchday 4 match between Solution FC and First Bank FC. According to the committee, the match officials' decision during the games were not in line with the laws of football. As a result of this, the officials have been stepped down with immediate effect. They said the decision is aimed at maintaining the integrity and standard of refereeing in the Nigerian football system, as the NFF Referees Committee will continue to monitor and evaluate the performance of match officials to ensure that they adhere strictly to the highest standards of professionalism and fairness. Away from Nigeria, Mohamed Salah netted a brace in Liverpool's 2-0 win over Bournemouth at the Vitality Stadium to extend the leaders' unbeaten Premier League run to 19 matches, while condemning the Cherries to their first defeat since November last year. Newcastle United missed the chance to cement their spot in the Premier League top 4 by letting the 1-goal lead slip in a 2-1 defeat against Fulham, who posted the first double over the Magpies since 2008-2009 season. Meanwhile, in the early kickoff, Nottingham Forest consolidated their place in 3rd position after a Chris Wood hat-trick fired the Tricky Trees to an emphatic 7-0 victory over Brighton at the City Ground. And that's your sports. It's back to Ruth.
Many thanks, Ayo, for that. And just before we go, let's find out how tomorrow's weather will look like.
Welcome to the weather forecast. A slight dust is expected to prevail over the northern and the north-central regions. However, the fringes of the north, particularly Yobe, Jigawa, Sokoto, Katsina, and Kebbi, should be a moderate dust haze condition. In the southern regions, a mix of patchy clouds and haziness is expected to dominate the skies, with slim chance of evening thunderstorms over parts of Delta, Bayelsa, Akwa Ibom, and Cross River State. Temperature is expected to warm up across the country, and with temperature on the rise, make sure to stay hydrated and take necessary precaution to stay cool. Let's take a look at the temperature forecast.
There you have it. Thank you so much for being part of Weekend File. On behalf of all of us here, it's good night. I'm Ruth Aguilera.